podcast is brought to you by LMU Munich.
I'm very excited to spend the next 2.5, 3 days, depending on how much work we get done, on really tackling problems that everybody should actually be working on. And I just thought, because there were so many hackathons in the last couple of days and weeks, I think we now have the most expertise already in this room, right? Because there's so many smart people working on this together already. With all of these partnerships, and I'm really happy to kind of facilitate you through that process. I briefly wanted to, give you an introduction on what we're going to do the next couple of days, and warm me up a little bit, because I have the feeling that we have been sitting for some time now, and I'm sure all of you have started working already. So to give you a little bit of energy, because we all of us need that energy for the next couple of days. Okay, just to give you an understanding of the timeline. Okay, so we basically have 2.5 days. So we start today at 1 and go until 6:30. We start again at morning. Start again tomorrow morning at 8 in the morning. So the early bird catches the innovative fish. So we need a lot of coffee here, and go again until 6:30. And then on the last day, we will again start at 8 in the morning and go until 1:30ish to kick it off. The basic idea of these innovation days, and I think you have already seen that in the program that Luisa shared, is to create an innovation. Okay, and for me, who has done that a couple of years now, it's always important to go through a particular process, through that innovation process, or innovation development, basically. And we will start today with what's usually called the team phase. Okay, so some of you have, maybe met each other already via Zoom, some not. That's not a problem. We'll work with, what's at hand. But then the next big phase, which will start this afternoon, I guess, is what's called the empathy phase. Okay, I will tell you more about this over, the course of this afternoon. And then tomorrow we will launch into creating ideas. Okay, so creating really new, awesome, innovative ideas to tackle these problems. And then on the last day, so on Wednesday, you will get the chance to pitch your ideas in front of a prestigious jury and actually win prizes. I'm not going to tell the prizes already because that creates a little bit of suspense, and hopefully it makes you stick around because they're really amazing prizes. It's not $1 million, but the equivalent of that. All right. Just to give you an overview again of today's agenda. Okay, we already started with an introduction by the vice president. We will start then with a warm-up to build your team. And then Professor Radon is again explaining a little bit more about this idea of One Health challenges, give you more insight and background information that you will need. And then we will launch into a innovation process by talking about innovative mindsets, and then also go into user exploration. But that's basically what we're planning for today. Okay, just a couple of things about myself. Okay, Luisa already mentioned, my vita basically, and the only thing that I wanted to emphasize again, besides having a PhD and my work right now, is that I'm really crazy about making people realize their innovative potential for creating a better world. Okay, so I've some experience in design sprints, in innovation days, in all kinds of different innovation formats. I think where I'm the best at and the most happy is when people actually build something. So an innovation that doesn't just make money, but actually creates something that where people benefit from, and it actually creates a social impact. So this is, I think, where my purpose lies, and I'm very happy to kind of facilitate that innovation day, or the innovation days in this process with you. At the same time, as was already mentioned, what I really like to, or the context where I usually like to work is this. Okay, so getting in touch with people, trying to combine energies, expertises, knowledge, skills, and so on to create something better. Obviously, this can't work. I mean, I could get in touch with you through my camera, but I think that would be kind of futile. So nowadays, I usually see myself in front of a screen, And I think, as was already mentioned by the Albert Einstein quote, there are a lot of opportunities in this. Okay, so maybe we can't just talk to each other as we would on a visual innovation day or a physical innovation day. At the same time, I think there are so many great opportunities by actually working together all over Europe at the same time, and really being able to innovate from at home, basically. So I guess most of you are still at home. The second point is that usually when I do innovation sprints, it's something in spaces like this. Okay, so you can see the energy in the room, or lack of energy, because that's the third day of an innovation sprint. But that really makes a lot of the energy that goes into innovation, right? So talking to each other, building something together. So in order to not have our innovation days end up in something like this, like maybe you know the conference call bingo, right? So tackling all these technology problems, right? I think we really have to be aware of how can we use the technology at hand. I will introduce you to the technology that we will be using and create something great and meaningful in terms of cooperation. These are basically my outcomes and expectations that I personally have, or we, as the UCLO team, have for you as participants of these innovation days. Obviously, we want to create something great. Okay, so we want to come up with an innovation. I think, yes, that's great. At the same time, I think what's one of the outcomes of these innovation days is also obviously to have fun. Okay, it's not only about the winner takes it all, because obviously we're all winners in taking part of and tackling these really pressing problems. But I think it really also should do something with you as a person. Okay, so I think innovation isn't only about the outcome, but also something about the process and how it transforms you as a person that is part of that process. So besides having fun, and I hope you could see from the stupid names I gave you as teams, I called you according to sicknesses and so on. So I will try to have, that we have as much fun as possible in these innovation days while being innovative. And I think it's really connected. I also want you to be open. Okay. And this sounds easy, right? Yeah, of course, I'm open. Yeah, I'm open to anything. But being really open, you will see in the next couple of days, is something else, right? So this could start by connecting with your team, right? Connecting with somebody that you haven't talked before, from a university that you have never seen or talked to before. But it could also be getting in touch with people that you have never, will never again talk to ever in your life again, right? So I really want you to embrace that idea of being open. And also, and this is kind of the third part, that as a learning outcome basically of these innovation days, I want you to embrace failure. And since most of you are from an academic background, I have the feeling, because I was in academia for quite some time as well, that failure is something that isn't really one of the skills that are being fostered in academia. Part of innovation is exactly that. Okay, we have to be good at failing, right? Because innovation doesn't mean I have a great idea and then that's it. It's more like, okay, I make a mistake and I learn from it, and then I make a mistake again. And it's really how you adapt from making mistakes, and making mistakes as soon as possible, which I think is kind of, to some extent, a little bit different than usual academia, just to generalize that. I mentioned this already, but I really want you to collaborate. And what does that mean? It means that we really are, having everything that we, our energy, our expertise, our skill set that we bring to the table really as a commitment. Okay, I really want you to take the opportunity of these innovation days and really collaborate with the teams that we selected. There was a reason why we selected these teams as we did. Obviously, we tried to make them as interdisciplinary, transdisciplinary, and diverse as possible. So really, and I think this will be difficult for some of you, because you will get in touch with other experts from totally different fields that you might have never had a chance to talk about, but really try to be open to other people's point of view, right? Because I think we live in a democratic society, and I think innovation is part of that package of really collaborating across borders, across disciplines, and so on. I mentioned this already. Okay, so I really want you to accept uncertainty. Okay, this is something that, in my experience, is the most difficult part for people to become more innovative, right? So how can we actually manage uncertainty? And this is what's usually connected to entrepreneurial thinking and doing. Okay, an entrepreneur, and this is kind of part of innovation, really has to embrace uncertainty, right? An entrepreneur who doesn't know what his innovation will be, he has to accept uncertainty, because it's different from writing a paper, right? When I write a paper, I usually have an understanding what the outcome will be. It will be published. In terms of innovation, we have no idea what will be the final product, right? And it will change all the time. So really, I encourage you to accept uncertainty as much as possible. One of my goals, again, in these couple of days, is that I want to boost your creative confidence. Creative confidence is this idea that really everybody of us, like every human being, has this potential for creating something. Unfortunately, we don't have the confidence to accept that creativity anymore, because of that culture of failure, because of other people's opinions and so on. But I really would like to work with you as a facilitator on this mindset to create something beautiful, right? So you can really create something, even if you are really bad at having ideas. I think you still can. I really want you to boost your creative confidence. And all of that, and that's kind of the equation, should evolve into kind of adapting a more innovative mindset. And all of these, so if you see innovation as a language, then all of the tools and methodologies that we will be using in the next couple of days are kind of like the grammar and the vocabulary of being more innovative as a mindset. Okay, so what I will basically do, I'm teaching you the language of innovation in the next 3 days, and I hope that you will, be more fluent in that. Okay, a couple of organizational issues. I mentioned this already, and most of you have already logged into these technological tools. I think for collaboration to really work, we have to have some kind of rules to that we all kind of stick to. We mentioned already in Louisa's emails and also in Slack that we will be using 3 basic platforms or tools, as you want to call it. One is Zoom. Already, a lot of people have managed to come into Zoom, so check. Another is Slack. So I think most of you have already logged into Slack and have understood how Slack basically works as a communication tool. And the other one is Mural, and I saw already a lot of interaction in Mural as on the platform. Okay, just a couple of rules that I would just share with you, just to make this more better experience for you to collaborate. Okay, first of all, Zoom. We've already done that. Okay, so stay mute and keep your video on, because it's just nice to see each other, especially because we will be using Zoom a lot for team exercises and teamwork. Okay, so if you will use the breakout room option of Zoom that you might know. So first of all, it would be great if you could rename your names, and I think a lot of people have done that already, to indicate your first, so as a first initial, the team name that you have. For example, Peter already has Fever Peter as his name, because that makes it just easier to organize the breakout rooms. Some of you already used the chat function. Okay, so if you have any questions, and I have 2 screens at the same time, so this is why I'm always looking like this. So if you have any questions, so please feel free to use the chat if you have questions or feedback and so on. The second tool is Slack. Okay, most of you have already logged in. So every time we don't want to communicate simultaneously on Zoom, we use Slack. So Slack is for asynchronous, as it's called, communication. And so you might have seen I created already team channels for your respective teams. So cold, flu, headache, all of you have already a team channel where you can communicate and write to each other through Slack. What's really important about Slack is that it can get messy, because there's so much information that can be on there and you lose track of everything. So let's try to keep it tidy a little bit. Okay, so let's try to vacuum a little bit and clean the desk and so on, just to keep it more orderly, because it can be really overwhelming on Slack. So you might have seen there are a couple of channels. Okay, so like a general channel where you can post general announcements. You have your individual team channels, but there's also something like a introduction channel where you can introduce yourself, or a support channel where you can ask for support. So for example, I need somebody who is a specialist in, I don't know, this or that. So you can ask these questions there. And I would really encourage you in terms of collaborating, not only to collaborate with your team, but also collaborate with the other teams, right? It's not about winning, it's not a competition. So really, if another team has a question and you have the answer to that question, so be so kind and answer that question. If you're a Slack pro, you can use reactions and emojis, just to keep it simple, to make it more user-friendly. The third tool is Mural, and most of you have already logged into it. And the basic idea of Mural is that we have templates there, because we will use a lot of different templates and methodologies and tools that are already set up in Mural. Okay, so Mural is basically a collaboration space. Okay, so each of your teams should already have access, and we will post it again to this platform. And then each team has its own working station or working space where you can basically build up tools and collaborate at the same time. So one option could be that you, for example, have a breakout room open when it comes to teamwork, and you have Mural open at the same time, and you can collaborate on, for example, an empathy map. Are there any questions about these tools, or how to get to them, how they work? So this would be, yeah, we will share. Thank you, Peter, for your question, and we will again share the link for it. And also at the same time, yeah, no worries. And also at the same time, me and Luisa, we will be helping you in navigating these tools. But Mural is really very intuitive in terms of how it works. Okay, are there any more questions? Please use the chat if you have any questions about these tools. No. Okay, then I go on. Okay, so the basic starting point of every innovation process is kind of triggered by this question. So what do you think is the number one reason innovations fail or succeed? You can use the chat function to, just post your guesses. So what's the number one reason a startup or a innovation as such that isn't already a startup or isn't yet a startup, why do they fail or succeed?
Sorry, Sebastian, to disturb you, but I think there are a couple of questions still in the chat, so maybe it would be good to answer them first.
Oh, okay, they just
and then go on. Sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Thank you. So one question was then, how can I change my name in Zoom? So you basically click on your picture. There's like a little button with 3 dots on a blue background, and then you can go to rename. And the next question was, oh yeah, you already answered it. Oh yeah, and yeah, I'm basically the only facilitator. So I will jump into your rooms as soon as you need me. But we will be the only facilitators of the innovation days, which makes it very fair, right? Because then there's no advantage in having a better coach or a worse coach. Are there any more questions about the tools? No. Okay, then let's go back to the question. So what's the number one reason innovations fail? So Helen mentioned not aligned with big business interests. Okay, that could be a reason. What could be another reason? The target audience is not clearly defined. So the target audience of the product is not clearly defined. Yes, very good reason. Let's have one more guess. No more guesses. It's basically the easiest. Okay, here. Room for first appearance, release of the idea, but not for it to grow. Okay, so there's no potential for scaling it. Yeah, that's also a reason. If you're asking investors why they invest in people, in startups, and so on, so a lot of people think, oh, it's because they invest in the idea, they invest in the revenue that could be generated. Unfortunately, or not really unfortunately, it's a good reason. The reason why a lot of innovations fail or succeed is because they have a good or bad team. Okay, so team is, as investors have it, as science would have it, is the one and only driver of innovations. Okay, you can have the best idea, you can have the best business model. If your team is not, fit to deliver it or to come up with the innovation, it's bound to fail. This is why investors, always try to invest in teams and not in ideas, because the best team can also change their idea. If you have a good idea but the team is bad, then you lose your money. The spin it is the motivation of the investor. The business plan is not well established. Wrong time. And it's interesting because all of you have kind of this very rational understanding of how innovation works, but it's actually something very human. And I briefly wanted to mention this article that came out 8 years ago by Andy Elwood in Forbes magazine, because he kind of phrased it in a very interesting way. So he's saying the dream team for good innovations are for him always containing one hipster, one hacker, and a hustler. Now that's obviously jargon. What he means by this is a hipster, so somebody who is close to the market, who is innovative, who is close to human understandings, who has a lot of empathy. The hacker is obviously the one who understands the technology, and the hustler is the one who understands the business, right, and is able to drive sales and has a business plan idea. But interestingly, so for him, and this is kind of a very often cited article, so this is kind of the perfect constellation of people being in a team. At the same time, and I think this is what we're heading for or aiming for with these innovation days, is it's also about kind of the team structure in terms of the individuals. So I have the feeling, or at least this is what I did, or how I felt myself after completing my PhD. I was basically an I-shaped individual. Okay, I was an expert in contemporary American novels, in philosophy of subjectivity and so on. So I was really, really good at that. Besides that, not so much. Then we have generalists, so people that are have a little bit of understanding in everything, and I think there's a really close connection to the internet. So people know a lot of things about different areas, but not really are experts in these fields. And then there's this third kind of type of individuals, and these are basically the individuals that we kind of want to focus on, and we kind of want you to develop you into these so-called T-shaped individuals. Okay, so on the one hand, they are capable in a lot of things and expert in one particular field. Okay, so it's basically like a T, so you have an expertise in AI, in health, in whatever, but you also have this broadening understanding of skill sets that help you to navigate into different realms. And this is basically a perfect constellation of team members when you have like experts, but also people who can have this general view. Yes, we will share the slides. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so in terms of this, right, so this will be the A team of innovation, and we can really work on diversity in the A team in terms of gender diversity, but we really, and again I mentioned this already, we really try to make your teams that we set up in advance and to be interdisciplinary and diverse in terms of different factors, right? So because we believe, and science shows it, and research shows it, that having different perspectives on things, different disciplines, but also different backgrounds is just very conducive to better innovations. Okay. Another aspect of great team effectivity that I briefly wanted to mention is the study that was done at Google, right? So the big internet company, and they basically organizational psychologists looked at the teams at Google, and they tried to analyze what makes a team work. And what's very interesting to me is that it wasn't technical expertise, it wasn't their experience in coding or whatever, but the number one, as you can see here, number one reason that teams excelled at Google was psychological safety, right? So it's not about expertise, it's really how much, as it says here, team members feel safe to take risks and be vulnerable in front of each other. And this harks back to what I mentioned at the beginning about accepting failure, okay? So a team where you can make mistakes and aren't embarrassed about it is so much more productive in terms of, and also more innovative, right? Because you don't have to, first deliver something until it's perfect, like a PhD thesis or a book, and then only show it, but you are more, as it's called, agile in terms of innovation. Obviously, one of the big building blocks of teams to work is fun. And since we also want to cherish or kind of celebrate that fun in your teams, we wanted to have a little team exercise in terms of team building that we will do now. And it's actually separated into two exercises. So one is fun, and the other one is about trust. And usually when, I don't know if you've been to team building events or whatever, what's the number one team building event that you do? You basically, stand in front of somebody and fall back, and then you hope that the other person catches you. Another very cheesy one is this, right? So you're blindfolding each other, and then you walk. So one of the group leads the other ones, and so on. And I'm kind of skeptical about these exercises, and I wanted to do something else. So what I would like you to do is briefly grab a cup of water, and in the meantime, we will arrange you into your breakout rooms. And there's still people showing up. We will arrange you into your groups in the breakout rooms. And then I want you to do two things. The first thing is I want you in your team to draw each other. Okay, just take a piece of paper and look at your other team members and draw them as beautiful as possible. Okay? And the second exercise, after you've done that, is that we do a virtual blindfolding. And you might ask yourself, okay, how does that work? But the basic idea is that you and your teams in your breakout rooms, you simply take your laptop, get up, you turn the laptop around, close your eyes, and then you walk through your apartment or your office or wherever you are right now, and everybody else is giving you direction. Okay, so you rely on your team to navigate through your apartment while being blind, basically. All right? Are there any questions about the exercises? Silence, just silence. Okay, grab some water. Let's have a bio break. And in the meantime, we will separate you into your breakout rooms and your teams. So please make sure that you have renamed yourself according to your team number, because that just makes it more easy for us to arrange your groups. And then we get started.